It was kind of the vision of a SIEM at some point.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's take all this data and we'll look for things and we'll correlate the logs and we'll, and what's the difference between what you're doing and what, those methods try to do or accomplish?
It's actually a great question. And I think that that some of what we've done was, you're right, sort of the promise of the SIEM industry. And I think like there's a few things that if you look back, the technology was a little bit like the promise of SIEM led a little bit to some of the technology that was available at the time. And I think like you look around now and things have advanced tremendously. What we've ended up doing is we identified that what you have to do is first, we focus on the fact that there's plenty of good detection technology out there. So I'm going to connect up to lots of different things. And because there are APIs available, I can make a deep API-based connection to various technologies. I'm going to pull the alert signal back and I'm going to normalize it. So I'm going to turn it into something that's relatively canonical. I'm going to make all the EDR alerts look roughly the same. And that's actually more complicated than you'd think, because if you look at the different vendors, what they include in an alert versus the other information they have is pretty different. So we end up having to do a bunch of back and forth with different vendors to get, in the EDR case, like I have a process lineage and I have a whole bunch of other command line arguments, that sort of stuff, which we had to build out of the alert. And what that does is enables us to then have a layer on top of that does like sort of more advanced correlation. I've got these alerts, which were surfaced by different detection technology. And now I'm going to correlate across those alerts with, some time series analysis, with some standard correlation rules, with some, machine learning stuff. We can raise and lower severities, that sort of thing. And all of that stuff kind of, and we can filter and bounce that against stuff that we know about our customers. Because the other thing that we realized, having done this a couple of times, is if I know something like my customer's business hours, it's a weird piece of data, but if I do know it, I know that that admin login is in the middle of the night for them. Wherever they're located, that's not their core business hours. That's weird to me. That gets my attention. Or I'm going to know that that's a second shift worker. And so therefore, it's not weird that they log in at that hour, that sort of stuff. So I'm going to give my analysts more context. Mm-hmm. The second thing that we did, and this was one of the things where we leaned in early, and you've got to kind of do this early, is we instrumented the platform we built. So we're talking about custom software. We made sure to measure everything in it. So I can tell you exactly what the analysts click on whenever they triage a particular type of alert. And we watch that carefully. So we can tell you that 75% of the time in response to this alert, they go here, and then they go here, then they go here. Awesome. Next time that alert happens, we're going to automate all of that. So all of those steps, all of that fetching of extra information happens when the alert shows up. So what that does is allows me to accelerate. It allows me to make sure that the human isn't wasting their time clicking around to places, that kind of thing. And if you focus on that and you then think about the user experience, you get a lot better. So like the example I always give people is like, next time you're getting off an airplane, try to get a look at the dashboard on the airplane, because what you're going to see is you're going to see LCD display panels, but they look like dials. And the reason they do that is because they figured out that pilots can look at a dial out of the corner of their eye and make a very quick decision. To look at an LCD with a digital display, you have to read it. That kind of UX, that kind of like decision support is the kind of thing we focused a lot on, so we can get our folks, combat effective. Because again, it's like, I need to take an analyst and make them effective across a range of tech. So I'm going to try to elide all that difference, and a range of customers. So I'm going to try to get enough context to elide that difference. You're absolutely right. The EDR tools are trying to do a very similar thing. People have woken up to the idea, I think, that it's not just about detection. Detection is critically important, it is step one, but there is user interaction, there is context, there is investigative process, there is, all of that sort of stuff rolls in. So a lot of the XDR platforms are putting that together now so that you don't have to build it yourself. And so that's where I think the market is kind of heading.
Are you kind of a XDR by default? By how you're designed, or I mean,
so it's a really interesting question, and I think it will depend on which analyst firm you ask and on what day. So we think of ourselves, a couple of the different analyst firms have coined a phrase, open XDR. Mm-hmm. So we're not vendor specific, but we provide a lot of the same capabilities. So it's an opinionated framework. It's significantly more opinionated than, say, a SIEM. It's an opinionated framework for investigation, and it provides a lot of those excess capabilities. It also, we do automatic remediation from our platform, that sort of stuff. So all of that like wiring is there. So yeah, you can definitely think of it that way. It's interesting because, and I'm not going to say that we didn't think about this ahead of time, because we sort of had this notion, we actually have customers using our platform as a standalone product on their own. They're like, I'm doing my case management and my investigations in, we call our product Workbench, in Workbench. And that's been a really cool thing. So we are sort of starting to tend to see bumping into that open XDR. So absolutely.